What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Monday, January 3rd edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by Jock Market. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can find me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And if you use the code Awesemo, Jock Market will match 100% of your first deposit up to $50. Today, we're going to take a look at 5 of the best tournament plays on DraftKings. Keep in mind that there is late news in the NBA. There's going to be some moving parts. Ownership projections and player projections will change. Some players probably will go on the COVID list throughout the day. We might get some back as well. But right now, looking at 5 of the top options on DraftKings. Number 5, Ja Morant, projected for 9% ownership with a 10% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's been extremely productive without Dillon Brooks on the floor this season. Usage rate well north of 30%, assist percentage well north of 30%, and it's likely that you get 34 or 35 minutes from him tonight at only $9,800. Looks like a very high upside option in his matchup against Brooklyn. Number 4, Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's projected for 10% ownership, 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's power forward center eligible on DraftKings at $11,800. The positional eligibility is what makes him interesting because there's a lot of very good plays at center tonight. There's a lot of very good guard options. The forward positions are a little bit weaker relative to those other positions. Giannis is in a game where there's a ton of blowout potential. Milwaukee's about a 16-point favorite at home against the Detroit Pistons. But even if you get 29 to 30 minutes from Giannis, if this game does blow out, there's a good chance that he's a large reason why. He's averaged about 1.7 DraftKings points per minute this season. So outside of Nikola Jokic, he's still the best per minute fantasy producer in the NBA. And he's not getting a ton of ownership. So it makes him look like a reasonable tournament option tonight. Number 3, Miles Bridges, projected for only 4% ownership with a 13% chance of being in the optimal lineup. Small forward, power forward eligible at $7,400 tonight against the Wizards. Bridges only played 25 or 26 minutes last night in his first game back, but that was also a game where the Hornets were blown out. So on the one hand, it didn't look like he was going to get his normal 37 or 38 minutes based on how his first half rotation went, but it's still likely tonight that you're getting at least 34 or 35 minutes from someone that's averaged about a fantasy point per minute, regardless of who's been active for the Hornets this year. So if he produces at an average rate and gets 35 minutes or so, he's likely to give you a decent game at 7,400. He can always produce at an above average rate, though, and give you a very strong game at low ownership. Number 2, Dennis Smith Jr. He's projected for 11% ownership with a 15% chance of being in the optimal lineup. He's $5,500 and point guard only eligible on DraftKings. We don't know if he's going to be in the starting lineup tonight. There's a few different ways that the Blazers lineup could go, but we do know that the Blazers are going to be without CJ McCollum. They're going to be without Damian Lillard, and they're most likely going to be without Yusuf Nurkic. So there's a lot of usage vacated in the starting lineup. In addition to backcourt minutes being available, thanks to the absences of Lillard and McCollum, it's likely one way or the other that you're getting 28 to 30 minutes at least from Dennis Smith Jr. And we know that he's capable of producing around the fantasy point per minute when he gets the opportunity. He also doesn't have a bad matchup tonight against Atlanta, and Portland has about a 110 implied total. And the number 1 tournament option on DraftKings, Naz Reid, is only projected for about 18% ownership right now. He has a 34% chance of being in the optimal lineup as a $4,800 power forward / center option. He had been eased back into play after missing a game or two due to the health and safety protocols. He played 12 minutes off the bench in his first game back. Then he started and played 20 minutes. But last night, Greg Monroe was not in the rotation for Minnesota. Naz Reid played about 30 minutes, got back to his normal rotation as a starter. And this is someone that produces at a high rate when he's on the floor. So having power forward eligibility, in addition to getting back to starters run last night, makes Reid look like a very strong option who right now is projected for close to half the ownership that he probably should have. So to recap, the top 5 tournament options on DraftKings: Ja Morant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Miles Bridges, Dennis Smith Jr., and Naz Reid.